Good morning. This is Jason Dean coming live at you again for yet another Film Fanatic video. It is Monday morning about 10:19. Hope everyone's doing good and hope everyone had a awesome weekend. I definitely this weekend was super fun. We had a couple of quantum shows at the All Roads Festival in Belfast. And so Belfast is about 7 minutes, 8 minutes from my house. It's super close. And so I basically was in Belfast for the last 2 days for the most part, and especially Saturday. The festival kicked off like around 4:30 on Friday, and then we played later that night. We played about 9:30 that night at the Three Tides Marshall Wharf in Belfast. Pretty much the best reason to go to Belfast. Such an awesome brew pub. Amazing location. Unbelievable. Super fun place to play music. I've been there a bunch of times to see music. I hadn't gone there in a long time and used to go there years ago. I used to go there every weekend. And and then about the summer before last I had a gig there. And there were some new owners that took over the business and they redid a bunch of the setup the way they redid they put a bunch of money in and did a lot of construction and kind of expanded the place and I hadn't been there in a couple of years, so it was wild to go back. And then I was like, I had a gig there, and that was the first time I had been back in quite a long time. And I remember being like, wow, like I need to start coming to this place more often because it's so awesome and it's so laid out perfectly. It's right on the ocean. And after that, I had played a couple other gigs, and then I started going there more often. Made it a point to start going there because it's so close to my house. And I started going there. I've seen a lot of music there this past year and even this year. And the one thing that I love about that place is that you have people there that are just the patrons. You have a lot of the locals which really support that place, but there's all kinds of new faces in there, and all kinds of new people always stop in there, and they're killing it business wise. But the thing that's so cool about it is it seems like whenever they have music there, the people really go there to see the music. It's not just a background thing. It's not just a fixture that the business kind of thinks about or acquires as like a secondary thing. To just have music, one step up from playing music, on Spotify or Pandora, just background music. A lot of places do that. Well, they'll obviously hire musicians and bands, but depending on the vibe of the room. But a lot of the times, for like smaller, more intimate places, you're kind of the musicians that are hired are kind of providing like this, a certain vibe or kind of the soundtrack for the experience of being there. Not necessarily, a featured band to that's there to be sought out. But with the Three Tides, I noticed they it has a very mellow kind of background or kind of a mellow location, but the focus seems to be on the bands whenever they get music in there. And what I notice is that people really come there a lot to go. At least in my experiences, from going there a lot this past year, and then having the cool opportunity to play a handful of gigs there. It's featured. The music that's there is featured, and people seem to come out to see the music, which is really really cool. And a lot of the times I've gone there, it's on kind of off nights. It's like Wednesday night or Thursday night, even Sundays, and it's always really busy for those events. And especially when they have events on Friday or Saturday, it's really slamming there. But so it's very cool. So we got to play there, and it was super fun, and the whole festival, it was amazing. We got to One of the perks of being a performer there is you get a pass and you can see music. So Saturday we saw I was there all day, all night Saturday, and I was there most of the day Friday into the night. But Saturday I was there longer, and I got to see even more music, and I saw so many bands I can't even count. It was great and really inspiring. And the most beautiful thing about the whole festival is that it's really showcasing original talent and original content, and that is such a that's the biggest asset, the biggest thing I feel like the All Roads Festival celebrates, and that's the main focus. Because at the end of the day, that artist or whether it's a solo performer or a band or what, and regardless of whatever genre it is, even to a degree of if it's maybe it's your cup of tea or maybe it's not, what that artist is doing and presenting, that's their calling card. So if you like it, they're selling, that artist or band is selling, you know, they're selling them their work, they're presenting their own original kind of creation. And at the end of the day, covers are great. Cover bands. I still, one of my friends, a few of my friends that play in a band, they play in a really kick-ass cover band, and so I have nothing against bands that play covers. I'm involved with a few bands that still do some covers. One band in particular, one band that I play with now is all covers, and that's more of a party band. So I have nothing inherently against people playing covers, but at the end of the day, showcasing your own original material, I feel, is like the be end all, or the ultimate calling card. And I think, at the end of the day, I feel like that's what people are going to remember you by. What if they like it, they might not like it or whatever. So that's the most beautiful aspect of this festival, is that the the key focus of it is original content. So it was really inspiring to see so many groups, so many artists performing original music, and on top of that, the amount of people that came out to see and to support that, because that is amazing, especially in this day and age where things are very chaotic, especially with how the entertainment industry took such an incredible, brutal hit from COVID. Not, thousands of artists, maybe even more, not being able to perform when that was their livelihood, through tours and gigs. And also coupled with the complex nature of people not really buying music anymore. Or if they do, they buy it really on the cheap side, or they essentially try to get it for free. With the exception of, vinyl sales. Bands that put out records, those are still selling really well. And, through streaming platforms, certain bands can make a dollar off of that, and even make a profit, and to a degree even sustain their livelihood. People still buy physical copies. I think people still buy CDs, but it's very, very small and it's very minuscule. So the artists have, like myself included, you have to kind of adapt. You can't, it's not going to stop necessarily. You're not going to halt that movement, but it's a case of, or a point of, just trying to adjust to what's going on and being in tune to what's going on. It's a very so it's led to people being in that position, musicians, myself, having to really figure out how to navigate through that. So, and I feel like in most in most ways, or when I think about the whole kind of situation of where musicians are, or they're at in this climate, I feel like overall, like there are, on one side, there's a lot of negatives because of people's way of consuming media. And on the other side, I feel like there are amazing benefits, and there's a really great, many great things that have come out of it. And as trying as it is, and as hard as it is for musicians to make a living or to make a profit, even, I overall feel that things to a degree are a little bit better now for musicians because on one side, one of the major things is that people can really get their content, bands and musicians can get their content out there without like having, say, traditional distribution through the use of social media. Whereas, in the past, certain, or musicians or bands needed to have that, that distribution. They needed to have some kind of deal that was on the table that they could get distribution to be seen and heard, with their product. But I feel like one of the really great things about social media is that you have tons and tons of artists, thousands or maybe millions of artists that can do all of those things the way they want to do them for the most part, and they have control over it for the most part, and they can do it for free. That is, to a degree, a big game changer. But, and I feel the way there's less barriers, I think it's easier to be exposed to cool music every day or cool art. There's less, and that's all attributed to pluses that I feel like the social media world that we live in, those are benefits of it. And people with technology too, people can record music a lot easier. They don't have to spend, maybe thousands and thousands of dollars in the studio, especially if they don't have a budget per se, or the backing of whether it's a major label or a small label. They can kind of do it anyway. That being said, the other negative side of it, and again, I feel like it's an example of kind of the matrix of how we live. On the negative side, because technology is so readily available and it's pretty cheap, you do have people, everybody and their grandmother feeling inclined that they are an artist and that they can put out their material. So you have to sift through more, I feel, to be able to be objective and define quality versus just stuff that's there. And again, that's objective or subjective to each person. But, you can get more inundated, I think, now with material than ever before. I've seen that with labels where they've talked, like a label representatives, where they've talked about where they're, the last 5 or 10 years, they're more inundated than they've ever been before. And they attribute that to people, being able to record at home and send in tracks to look into inquiries about getting picked up by a small label or a big label. Basically, a lot of places have, or a lot of record labels or distribution things have kind of shut down their typical avenues because of the amount of traffic. So that's one thing, but and then competing with people's changing habits. Where people don't necessarily want to buy that CD for $10 or $15, or go to that concert that's going to cost, 75 to $100, or go to that movie that's going to cost 10 or $12, coupled in with all the expenses of living, which are pretty ridiculous. So it's very complicated having to navigate through all of it. But I do overall think that there is more good than bad. But that's just my opinion. So today's show, I'm super excited. I have been loving life lately, especially when it comes to all these new movies I've been discovering. I've been doing a bunch of reviews lately on all of these movies that I realized about a few weeks ago that I started buying a lot of movies and I wasn't really watching them. I was getting inundated with buying lots of movies. I've been going more to go shopping for movies, which has been great. But I realized I'm starting to amass a pile of movies that I haven't watched because I've been buying movies a lot. You know, from, my typical trips to Bull Moose, where I go to buy my exploitation movies, and then when I go to Goodwill in Rockland, which is another great place that I love to go to buy movies. And I realized, wait, I got this whole stack of movies that I haven't watched, and they're starting to collect dust. And I don't need to buy any more movies right now. I need to actually watch the movies that I own. That's one of the things that I love to do with this show is I try to obviously have all these other videos and coverage of movies. Every time I see a movie in the theater, I'll do a review of it or I'll talk about it. And those are obviously movies I don't personally own. But I try to, the majority of all of these videos on this channel are all about movies that I personally own and that I've seen, or movies that I've seen multiple times. For me, it is kind of more of an educational way to explain. When I own the movie, it's more of an educational way for me to kind of, explain what these movies mean, and being that I own these movies, it gives me, I feel like I have a little bit more insight to these films, as opposed to like just seeing them you know, you know, uh, somewhere randomly, or a movie I just rented, and I don't own it because I don't have access to revisit it, which I do. I do watch movies, certain movies that I really love. I end up watching numerous times, so it's all part of that too. It's funny, while I was shooting, while I'm doing this video, I just had my really great friend Erin Kilpatrick message me. She's a really great friend. We've gone to a shit ton of movies together. She's also a real big, definitely a fellow film fanatic, and she's awesome. She's one of my best friends, but she has really great taste. She's into all kinds of shit, and it's great. And but she had just messaged me if I have if I've seen Nope from Jordan Peele, his last movie that came out last summer, and I I said to her, yeah, oh yeah, it's awesome. I saw it in the theater, and I did a review on that. I believe it was the first video I did for this channel. I saw that came out in July of last year. Killer movie. And definitely a movie to see on the big screen, but just such an awesome sci-fi horror, kind of epic movie. And then she said, "Well, I haven't seen Us, so I need to see that." And that's another fabulous movie. Jordan Peele, I feel like, is easily one of the best directors around, and one of the most creative forces in the filmmaking industry. Just amazing. And I think he is one of the guys that is really taking the horror genre and is elevating it and moving it forward and making it very contemporary. And, certain limitations or restraints that have been put on horror, he's kind of removed those things. He's removing those things and making it a little bit more, um, I feel, bold and courageous. Not being afraid to have influences from other films that are, say, non horror, oriented kinds of things. So, but today's show, I'm super excited. Today's show is about this movie. I bought this really awesome collection at Goodwill. I'm like again, like I said, I'm watching all of these films that I've been buying over the past few months, but I haven't actually watched them. So I'm making myself watch them all, and I've been super, super impressed and really blown away. I did a series of 3 videos of where I reviewed these 3 werewolf movies that I just saw. There were these amazing, super low budget exploitation movies that I'd never seen, and I was blown away by them. I got that at Goodwill, and then I also got this. This is a collection. I'm not a huge fan of bonus packs and all those kinds of things, or the multi-pack movies, but because I like to buy movies individually, especially if I can get them, with on Blu-ray, or especially if they have special features and all those things. But sometimes you find things that are just a steal, and you just need to get them. So I bought this horror collection for $3, and it's got 10 movies on it. And I started watching it the other night, and it's got some killer movies on here. I'm about 3 movies in. It's 2 discs, and it's awesome. Like, I got a whole other disc here, and again, like I said, I'm 3 movies in, and super cool, super super awesome. And this one movie, today's show is about this movie called Trancers, which is this super goofy, weird '80s kind of exploitation movie, and it's a full-on like science fiction movie. It came out in 1984. I had never seen this movie before, and I just love it. It was directed by Charles Band. Charles Band is a figure in the horror exploitation world, who I'm pretty familiar with. He was an American film producer and director. He's still going. He's made a whole bunch of movies. He was responsible for, it came out in 2006, Evil Bong. He makes all of these like super low budget horror movies, exploitation movies basically. Trancers, 1984, so awesome. Puppet Master, he was responsible for that too. He was involved. He was like the producer and writer of that. The Gingerbread Man, which is like unbelievable, like one of the most ridiculous movies ever. Super low budget. I mean, pure exploitation. And I think Gary Busey is in that. It's amazing. Demonic Toys in '92, another just classic. Evil Bong 2, he did the sequel to Evil Bong. King Bong, it's called. Evil Bong 420. I mean, these movies are just so utterly ridiculous, but amazing. And Trancers is, I was kind of blown away by how ridiculous this movie is. One of the things too that I find that's so funny about the world of exploitation is seeing certain actors in some of these films, especially obviously early on in their career, where certain actors really did a lot of exploitation movies throughout their career, and more so early on. One really iconic actor that did that was Jack Palance. And so every now and then I come across an actor who did a lot of these ridiculous movies. And I'm just like, holy shit, I had no idea. And Helen Hunt is in this. in this movie, and she hasn't done anything in a really long time, but she's like an Academy Award winning, or at least uh, Academy Award nominee for like Best Actress for a bunch of movies. She was in a whole bunch of big Hollywood movies, and I had no idea that she did these kinds of films. And Trancers is just like kind of insane. And a troop, the basic story, and it's so ridiculous but amazing. A trooper played by Tim Thomerson leaves 2047 Angel City for 1985. So he travels back in time to the year 1985. He comes from 2247 to Los Angeles to stop this zombie mystic from changing history. And it's like basically, and it stars Tim Thomerson, Helen Hunt, of course, Michael Stefani, and Biff Maynard, and Thelma Hopkins. And this movie is so utterly ridiculous. It kind of it involves time travel. He's like this futuristic cop, and basically there's like this alien race that has invaded the world, and has uses these psychic abilities to take over their victims, and then these people that are possessed or controlled by this alien species basically go out and cause all kinds of rampage, and they start killing people, and it's just so ridiculous. It's super low budget, super campy, super weird. One of the weirdest things about this movie, one of the strangest things, uh, is there's this whole scene where he's confronting these characters that are now being controlled by this alien species. And it takes place on this rooftop. And there's actually this scene where it totally reminded me of The Matrix, of where it's basically bullet time, of where there's scenes of where these characters are shooting bullets and everything slows down, but the main characters, this cop, is able to adjust himself and get himself out of harm's way and avoid the bullets. And it's wild because this is from 1984, and it literally is the whole sequence from The Matrix. I mean, Matrix was known to be the movie that kind of invented that technology called bullet time, of where everything is like it's like slow motion capture of action scenes. You know, brilliant, amazing, and innovative. But that kind of thing is very much in this movie, and I'm just like, I was dumbfounded. And this came out in 1984, and I wonder, like, and the other thing too that is just crazy is that the famous Matrix scene takes place on top of a high rise building, where there's this big battle scene between Neo and Trinity against Agent Smith and these other agents, and that's where the whole bullet time sequence happens, and it's like breathtaking. But with Trancers, the scene is virtually identical, and it takes place on a rooftop of a building, and it's the cop, Helen Hunt's character, and these aliens that are these police officers that are being their minds are controlled psychically from these aliens, and it's basically exactly the same sequence. And I was just like, what the fuck? Crazy, crazy. But this movie is super bizarre because of the level of where these aliens use these like psychic abilities to control people. All of the people who get controlled and who become the victims of the aliens are people you don't expect. There's one sequence. This movie also takes place during Christmas time. So there's a scene of where this Santa Claus in this mall, who is having all these kids visit him, or is taken over by these aliens. And there's this whole gunfight in this mall between this cop and this Santa Claus. And basically Santa Claus gets shot and killed in a mall, and there's all these kids around. It's just completely insane. But super sci-fi based, which I really love. Super campy, super low budget, and totally ridiculous. Kind of sleazy. Amazing. And I had never seen this movie before, never even heard about it before, but it was on this combo pack, and yeah, just amazing. And and it was directed by Charles Band, who I'm definitely familiar with. But what an awesome movie! What a great find! What a great discovery! The quality of it's a DVD collection. The quality is okay. It's pretty decent. I've started watching other movies on this package, and I do have a really good copy. There's a really great edition of this on another horror exploitation classic, super low budget epic, The Puppet Master, and that's on here too. And I started watching that last night. I actually finished it, so that's going to be the next review. And that is actually really good quality. But I'm super excited. I'd never seen this movie before, and I love it. It's super awesome. I would totally buy it on Blu-ray if I get a chance. In my travels and I see it. So, Trancers, 1984, directed by Charles Band. Just wacky sci-fi. Totally low budget, super weird, super cheesy, kind of sleazy, and entertaining as all hell. Just a great kind of 80s exploitation movie. Yeah, great stuff. So this is Jason Dean. So thanks again for supporting this channel, and we will see you next time. Peace.